All right, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm genuinely excited about this webinar. Finding the right e-learning solution. It is something that I've spoken to many customers about for a while now. It's something we've been working on for quite a long time. A lot of time and research and preparation, development work has gone into getting Arlo and us to the point where we can show this to you, share our findings, and hopefully make this journey transitioning to some delivering online content and blended learning experiences easier, quicker, and more affordable for you. We've got, we've got a lot to cover today, and a lot for you to take away from this webinar. Before we get started, some quick introductions. I'm Nick. I'm one of the senior product specialists here at Arlo. So I work over in the UK support team in the UK office. A lot of you I've spoken to before. Those of you I haven't, it's great to have you with us. Sort of the other side of my job as well is I work on Zapier a lot. So I've worked with a lot of customers around building zaps and all of our zap templates and documentation. So we'll be touching on that later on. I'm also incredibly privileged today to be joined by Nick Ruckel from Coassemble. He will be taking you through Coassemble the LMS later on. They're a company we're partnering up with, a fantastic LMS platform. I've been spending a bit of time in there, getting to know it, and I'm really excited to see what he has to say. So you have two Nicks today taking you through the world of e-learning and LMSs. Let's have a look at what we're going to cover off. So we'll start off with an overview of LMSs, right? That's the real thing we need to answer is what is an LMS, why you might need a TMS and LMS, how they go hand in hand with one another. We'll take a look at the LMS market, understand that a little bit better, and then sort of pull that together to see why connecting an LMS to Arlo is such an important, such a valuable thing to be able to do. So once we've answered, the what is and why LMS question, we can take a look at the sort of the how, which is connecting the LMS to your TMS via integration. So we'll look at a native integration, Moodle on Arlo. We'll take a look at Zapier, again, a refresher on that, and then look at Coassemble and Arlo together connected via Zapier. Then I'll hand it over to Nick. He will take you through a quick demonstration of Coassemble. That's going to be pretty awesome. And we'll wrap it all up with a classic next steps. What can you do post this webinar to start your transition or to further your transition into delivering e-learning and blended content and training. Cool. So let's start off with an overview of LMSs, right? And before we go any further than that, I think it's important for us to look at the benefits and understand what blended learning and e-learning is. So e-learning is pretty simple to understand. It's kind of self-descriptive. It is any content which is learning content which is delivered online, right? So that could be a quiz, a video, it could be assessments. There's a whole host of different things which we'll go into later on. But importantly, it's just online, self-paced delivered content. Whereas blended learning means providing course content in a variety of delivery formats. So that can include face-to-face, live online webinars, quizzes, videos, podcasts, so on and so forth. Not only does it provide a much richer learning experience than any one format on its own, but it's scalable and effective. So traditionally, a blended learning course would have included a face-to-face element. Obviously, that's not entirely necessary, and in the wake of COVID, that's not really the case as much anymore. So a blended learning course may now include a live online webinar as well as an e-learning component. And that's the great thing about both blended and e-learning, right? This is flexible and accessible, both for the business and the learner. And that's what that table up on the screen at the moment is really showing us. So from the business perspective, we've mentioned scalable, and the scalable and the cost effective kind of go hand in hand, right? Once you've built the e-learning content out, you can deploy that and scale up infinitely, right? There's no further cost and there's no further complexity really if you have the infrastructure in place to deliver that to more and more customers. And that makes it more cost effective because that means you're removing both the cost of the traditional face-to-face training model, which travel, venue cost, and presenter cost, but you're also creating a single piece of content which can be sold multiple times. So each time you sell that, you're lowering your cost per unit on delivering that training, and you're earning more in terms of profits. So that's increasing your profits. And finally, it's saving you time, sort of a combination of all of those, right? Since it's not requiring the administration and the physical presence of delivery face to face, it's a lot quicker and a lot simpler to deliver blended or e-learning. And then from the learner side, this is obviously equally important. It is creating a much more accessible and tailored experience, right? We know that people want to be able to learn at their own pace, especially now a lot of us are working from home. We want the flexibility to be able to drop in and out of that learning, and we want it to be more tailored to us. Where some people are more engaged learners, such as myself, like I learn through doing, other people want to be able to sit back and read or watch a video or listen to a podcast, right? And having an LMS that supports e-learning content or delivering it through a blended environment offers that amount of flexibility to your learners. And that fundamentally means it increases that knowledge retention for them, both because they can learn in their own comfortable environment and in their own pace and way, but also because it offers them the opportunity to come back and revisit that content later. And we know that repetition is an incredibly important part of knowledge retention. So there are huge benefits from both the business perspective and from the learner perspective to delivering blended and e-learning. But the bottom line really is the bottom line. It's about increasing profits. At the end of the day, you are a business. And here you're here to increase those profits for your business. So blended learning is the most effective way for you to scale your business, increase that course capacity. We talked about that in the scalability, and fundamentally, you can charge more money. So where a traditional course was sort of a one-off instance that could occur, now you can offer a blended course where you might have that face-to-face or live online element, but then you have this extra content on top of that as well. And we talked about the ability that they can go back to revisit it, so that it's a longer lasting value model for the customer, and therefore they're more willing to pay more money for that. So there's an opportunity to improve the learning experience, improve the learning outcomes for your learner, and to decrease your cost of delivery and increase the price. So fundamentally increasing your profit margin as well. So it's a very, very strong business case to delivering blended and e-learning. Now, if you'd like to know more about that, we actually have some fantastic resources on building out a business case for blended and e-learning. If you head over to our website, under the resources section, there's a load of information there. We've got some webinars on that as well, which are really worth watching if you'd like to learn more. But there is a wealth of resources out there from us and Arlo and as an industry as a whole to help you get started from the business case point of view. So let's say you've sat down, you've had the conversation, you recognize that the market wants e-learning and blended learning, right? And you need to start offering that to be able to keep up with it and to be able to increase your profits. The question is, how do we do this, right? Well, that's where an LMS comes in. So what is an LMS? A learning management system is a type of software dedicated to delivering online learning. Unlike a training management system, an LMS is mainly focused on the experience of the end user, right? So this type of system allows you to create, deliver, report, track the online training for learners. All right, and this can come in a whole different range of modules. It could be a score module, which is an interactive course built outside of an LMS and added to it. It could be a quiz, a survey. There's so many. We'll cover some more, but there's a lot of different options there. So an LMS is fantastic at making it easy for you to create and deliver and report on that online content. And Nick later on will show us exactly this when he demos Coassemble. But there are some drawbacks as well, right? We need to consider the bigger picture. They fail to cover the complex back office processes involved in delivering the traditional face-to-face instructor-led training, which you're probably used to doing. So an LMS is very focused on the delivery and tracking of the virtual courses, but these requirements are very different to the wide range of resources needed for you to run a commercial training business. So where an LMS would allow you to provide that engaging, varied collection of course material for your online learners, it would leave you pretty empty-handed when it comes to the e-commerce, the logistics, and the operations side of your training business. Now, it's important to note at this point that Arlo doesn't offer an LMS functionality, both to create or host content. And that's why we need to have this conversation around an LMS and a TMS hand in hand with each other. There is a space for both of them to exist and coexist alongside and to augment each other and to improve the learning experience for your customers. That's really where this slide comes in, right? So let's have a look at the specific features of both an LMS and a TMS. So the TMS on the right-hand side, we can see, from the front-end perspective for the user, you've got the e-commerce, the registration, so the website, so discovery through of the courses to the website, the signing up and payment of that for the customer through the e-commerce and registration, and then their self-administration and self control of those courses via the self-service portal. And then on the back end, we've got sort of the core side, which is the scheduling and logistics and your task automation. You've got the financials through the managing of orders, the reporting and auditing. And then you have the more marketing and customer side through the CRM, the leads tools and marketing tools within a TMS. Whereas an LMS on the other side, we can see is very focused, like we said, on the course creation and delivery and the collaboration tools for the learning experience. Right? And one key reason it's not obvious in this illustration for why you'd need both a TMS and an LMS to create a blended learning journey, for instance, is that you can't create the face-to-face component in an LMS. That can only come from the TMS. Now, some LMSs and TMSs have functionality that does cross over, i.e. some offer e-commerce such as Thinkific and Teachable. But from our experience and research, those sort of that level of functionality isn't sufficient enough to cope with the complex scheduling of whether it's public or private reoccurring courses, multi-session courses, certifications, all those parts which you need, right? So you can't quite just get away, or you can't get away with just using an LMS. It is that relationship between the TMS and the LMS, which is critical and really expands the opportunity for delivering training to new markets and to improve upon your existing training that you have today. So we've addressed, right, what an LMS is. You understand that you need one, and you understand that relationship between an LMS and a TMS. Obviously, you need to ask the question then, what LMS do I want? Well, when you start taking a look at the market, you realize it's pretty big and it's pretty saturated. All right, just there alone, we have over 20 different LMSs on screen, and that's not even all of them. There are more than that, and there's more being added at a fairly quick pace at the moment as well. It's a growing market. Examining each one of these systems is not a productive or time-effective or cost-effective process for you, and it's actually quite complex. So we've gone out, we've done the hard work, and we've narrowed it down to 7 systems that we believe are worth consideration. So let's take a look at each of those now. We've canvassed the market for the best LMS solutions for training providers, right? So we've looked at functionality and price. We've also taken into consideration whether they have a native integration with Arlo, such as Moodle and LearnBook, or a Zapier integration with us. And the reason is without an integration, your 2 systems won't talk to each other. And you'll end up with a long, a long list of manual tasks. And I'm chuckling there because I appreciate how much work is involved in that manual side, and a very disjointed customer experience. Right? So for this purpose, we recommend that an integration with Arlo is an essential requirement when choosing your LMS. So we'll take a deeper dive into that Zapier and native integration functionality shortly. First, I just want to take a bit more of a look at this table. A quick note that SSO is only available with some of the top plans. The reason I mention that is obviously as we're introducing greater support for SSO through Arlo, multi-factor authentication, and being able to create a more seamless, consistent experience by having SSO on the Arlo side and SSO on the LMS side means that your customers aren't having to create multiple accounts. They aren't having to sign in multiple times. It's much easier for them. But that does often come with the requirement of being at the highest paid price. So for comparison's sake, we have compared the costs at the top level plan, and that's because they have the most comparison points. The large number of features means the most comparison points. It makes for a better table and a better evaluation. Zapier isn't available on many of these base plans as well. So some of them do offer much cheaper plans, but are often not quite as fit for purpose or come with higher integration costs. So for instance, a lot of them don't offer Zapier at the base plan level. So you need to be paying for at least 1 tier up, often higher because of your business requirements. One more thing to note on the pricing is that the price is still variable for some of these LMS providers. That means you could still be paying for a per registration on top of these prices. So Coassemble and Thinkific are actually fixed price instead. We call them all-you-can-eat sort of plans. They're all-you-can-eat registrations. You pay a fixed monthly fee, unlimited number of learners active at any point in time. You'll see Moodle doesn't have a cost up there, and that's because it's a kind of complicated one. It's an open source and free to download platform, but it needs somewhere for you to host it. So you might have the in-house resources and capabilities on your IT team to self-host Moodle, but more often than not, you need a provider, a Moodle partner to help host and establish and maintain Moodle for you. And the costs associated to that are are very variable and often quite high. So if we just sort of take a quick look at that table as a whole anyway, and we go from left to right, we can see the different level of functionality. I'm not going to go through this in detail. Hope you've had an opportunity to look at that while I've been talking through these notes. We will make this available outside of the webinar, and you can always come and check it out from the video, or sort of the recording of this webinar that's going to be delivered to you. It'll be available on our website and on our YouTube channel. But you can see different LMSs offer different types of functionality around the types of content they support, around the way that you can access the platform, and around the way that you can brand it. So any one of these might suit your business requirements. We have obviously taken a look or working with Coassemble, and we'll talk about that later on. Moodle has the native integration with us, which is a big benefit, and we'll touch on that later. But just be aware that different LMSs offer different levels of functionality, and you need to be conscious of whether or not these are going to meet your business requirement. So you've decided that which LMS you're going to work with, whether it's let's say Moodle or Coassemble. Those are examples we're going to work with moving forwards from here. Previously, we've spoken about the importance of connecting Arlo as your TMS to your LMS and having the communication between those two platforms to leverage the greatest value out of both of them. I want to spend a bit of time now just looking at the different options available to you to achieve that connection. We'll start off first looking at a native integration example, which is our integration with Moodle, our Moodle plugin. So native integration are built and managed by in-house development teams, that's software companies such as Arlo. Most modern applications will offer some native integrations as part of their software package. So for instance, we as you're probably aware, we offer Zoom, Salesforce, Moodle, SurveyMonkey, Xero, and there's a few more on top of that. For you as the customer, native integrations are fantastic because they're so easy to set up, right? Often all you have to do is just sign into an account and it's done. That's Zoom, just sign into your account and you're done. They offer deep functionality. We're able to leverage the greatest amount out of the APIs, and we're able to build a very competent integration between two platforms. So you get a lot out of it, and we'll have a look at that in some examples below in those bullet points. And importantly, they just work. The vendor, like us, we're responsible for managing them. So let's look at that in terms of the Arlo Moodle plugin. You can automatically enroll students on Moodle courses when they've registered on the Arlo one. You can create blended learning sequences. You have live visibility of their progress. You can automatically send certificates based on criteria to do with grades and completion. And obviously, you can view the payment status to action things that happen inside of Moodle as well from Arlo. So there's an enormous amount of functionality within that. However, there are some drawbacks to be aware of with native integration. They are fixed in their functionality. So for you as the user, your business requirements might have A, B, and C, but the native integration might only do X, Y, and Z. Right? And because they're designed to a fixed scope, native integrations have very little opportunity to be adapted or customized to match up with your business requirements if they're not well aligned with that integration. So you might just find that the native integration doesn't satisfy your requirements, right? The other side, from the vendor perspective, is it takes an awful lot of time and effort to build a native integration. And if we think back to that slide with all the LMSs, we can see there are sort of like 20, 30 LMSs now alone. There's way more out there in the market. We, like any organization, have finite resources. We can't build native integrations for all of those. We couldn't even really do it realistically for those 7 that we filtered down to. The time it takes to scope them out, build, implement, support, it just doesn't make it feasible. Well, that means you're in a situation where you've chosen your LMS and you know you need to connect it to Arlo, but you're saying, right, there's no native integration. How do I go about doing this? Well, that's where the other option via Zapier comes into play. So Zapier allows you to connect your TMS with more than 2,000 other apps and to automate repetitive tasks. And the best thing is, there's no code required whatsoever. I've spent lots of time in Zapier, not a single bit of code. So you've got 2,000 supported apps in a future-proofed environment. It's flexible. You can build your workflows to your business requirements rather than in a fixed scope, and it offers you the opportunity to save the time over doing it manually. There are a few cons or drawbacks. You're responsible for keeping it working. Native integration, we support it and manage it. It's fine. We're very proactive on communication. We'll keep you up to date. We have a great support department to help you if anything breaks. There's a cost associated with Zapier. It's a monthly subscription fee. I can tell you now, the cost per unit for running Zaps is so low, and you're pretty much guaranteed to offset the cost of Zapier by the saving in reduced admin time. And finally, there is a learning curve to it. but we have some fantastic resources: docs, Zap templates, webinars. Zapier has their own documentation. They have some fantastic YouTube videos, and we have support@arlo.co. Reach out to us. We're always happy to help. Important thing to note, those cons do not outweigh the pros of using Zapier, not one bit. Let's have a look at how Zapier works with your TMS, right? So we can consider a couple of different examples, and we'll look at a few different bits of a few different bits of software. So there is a connection between the TMS and Zapier, right? That's via the API. Zapier then has the connection to all the other apps as well. So for instance, we could have a Zap, which is when a new contact is created in Arlo from a registration, we want you to create them in an external CRM, Zoho, Salesforce, Dynamics. Or maybe if someone subscribes or unsubscribes to the newsletter, we want you to do that in ActiveCampaign or MailChimp. Maybe when a course is created, we want to create that in a Google or an Outlook calendar. Right? So it's capable of automating really, time-consuming manual process tasks very quickly and easily, but it goes beyond that as well. It offers you the power to build complex workflows as well. So let's say we have a blended learning course set up, which needs multiple different bits of information in multiple different platforms. Well, we can use Zapier to say, right, registration taken for blended learning course. Enroll them in, here we go, we see here the Talent LMS course. Then I need you to add them to a Google spreadsheet for record keeping. I need you to add them to a specific MailChimp list for that blended learning course. I need them created in Salesforce as our CRM, their order added to QuickBooks, and a custom email sent to them with some more information. I could do all of that in one single workflow. Right? Think about the amount of time that would take to do on a per register basis, or even batch actioning, right, between all these different platforms. Talking about hours a week if you're taking a number of registrations. That can all be done instantaneously via a Zap, right? And that's just something. That's just one part, right? We can see here you've got over 2,000 more apps. The important thing to note is Zapier is here to fix pain points you've had in workflows previously that you're aware of, and to open up new possibilities, such as now offering you the ability to take e-learning registrations and add them into an LMS, or take blended learning registrations and add them into an LMS and other platforms as well. Talked a lot about Zapier as a whole. I just want to spend a couple of minutes really quickly just running over what a Zap is. So you've got that as a context, because we're going to jump in and build one in a moment. So a Zap is an automated task you want to run again and again between online apps. So e.g. Arlo is a TMS and MailChimp. It consists of a trigger. This is a trigger. That's something that happens in an originating platform. So here we see a new contact is being created in Arlo. That starts the workflow. And then there's an action. That's what we want to do once the trigger is started. And that's what we want to do with the data from the trigger. So we take all the data from a new contact, and we're actually putting it into filter, which is just a gate. And we're saying, has this person subscribed to the newsletter? If yes, equals true, then let it move on to the next action, which is actually adding that person to a specific list within MailChimp. So it's the combination of a trigger and an action, or here we have a set of actions, because this is a multi-step Zap, which is what makes up a Zap. And then tasks are just every time an action is successfully completed, you use up a task, and the fee with Zapier is you have a quota of tasks available to you per month. But they have a very cost-effective model for you to increase your tasks if you look like you're going to approach it. So we've got a good understanding of Zapier, what it is. Let's take a look at the LMS options for Zapier integrating with Arlo. As we mentioned earlier, right, the integration with Arlo should be a pretty essential requirement for when you're choosing an LMS. If it's poor or non-existent, you're going to spend hours in administering and re-entering that data. Okay? And as humans, we will make mistakes, and this is going to lead to an increased cost to either correct them, or you're going to miss out on opportunities, maybe a damaged reputation for not delivering the level of service, or maybe just outright losing business. So after the LMS's core functionality, which we saw earlier on, the degree of integration should be your next consideration, in terms of requirements at least, right? And that all depends on really what you need that system to do if you're an individual training business. So let's have a look at this table. We can kind of actually split it into two. On the left-hand side, if we ignore the actual LMSs, they're just there as the rows. If we look at triggers, actions, and searches, they're just really acting as a count of how many different things can be done within there. That's not too important. We're really interested on the right-hand side, which is showing us the different actions and triggers that we can complete through Zapier and Arlo through that LMS using Zapier connected to Arlo. So the first thing that you're always going to need to do, for instance, is enroll a new learner, so a new registrant in Arlo, into the LMS. And we can see obviously all but Moodle have that, so that would rule Moodle out as a connection straight away. Obviously, we have our native integration, offers much greater functionality. But maybe you need to offer like just a limited amount of timed access to a certain course. Well, then you need an unenroll action. And we see, for instance, that would put talent, and in this instance, like Coassemble, would remove it from the mix. But it would mean LearnDash or Thinkific's perfect for you. But what happens if actually you deliver a lot of private training and therefore you need to add people to certain groups and you control a group's access to content within the LMS? That's quite a common thing to do. Well, then in that instance, Coassemble's perfect for you, right? Because it has a role group. It has also create groups actions as well. It's got a few different ones, which are really cool. And then let's say, okay, I need to pass individual learner feedback back into Arlo so we can do the certification or just certificate criteria to see whether they're sent out or they've been issued a certification and accredited body, or an accreditation, sorry, from an accredited body. Well, in that case, then you're working with Thinkific, LearnDash, or Coassemble. What's really important here, rather than using this to say, right, this is the right one, LMS for me, is to appreciate the importance of identifying your business requirements for an LMS. This is the type of training I need to deliver. These are the sort of situations and environments I need to deliver them in, whether it's individual or group training, public or private, paid or unpaid, unlimited, limited time access. You need to think through those requirements. And then you can come back to this table and through your own research as well, identify an LMS that offers the functionality to achieve that and the integration, the depth of integration to allow you to meet up with those requirements and leverage the most out of both platforms. So, we've done a lot of research and fundamentally, sorry, the decision really does need to be yours at the end of the day based on those requirements. We are going to look at Coassemble as an example, and I think if you're looking for a good all-round, very well-focused LMS, Coassemble is the perfect one for you in that instance. You need to make your own decision, but this is a great place to start if you're unsure. So let's have a look at Zapier's integration between Arlo and Coassemble. So using our template library, you can set up Zaps to automatically complete tasks between Arlo and Coassemble, such as automatically enrolling a learner in a Coassemble eLearning course after they register the course in Arlo, and then this will trigger things within Coassemble as well. So we can see the sort of the depth of functionality between Arlo and Coassemble in those bullet points, enrollment, blended sequences again, completed course back into Arlo, so you can keep their completion within Arlo as well to trigger things, and that's that final point. There's a great level of functionality within there. The important thing, remember, as I said in the previous slide, is make sure whichever LMS you're choosing offers the level of functionality you need it to. So we've spoken a lot about the functionality itself. I want to spend a bit of time actually going through building these Zaps out, just so you're familiar with the process involved in it. And actually, really, you can just see how easy it is for you to set up this connection between Arlo and Coassemble and how much you can leverage from it. Okay, cool. So I've jumped across into my Arlo platform. I've got Coassemble and Zapier up as well. We'll start here. So we've got an e-learning course, building an online learning strategy. Got a few registrations in here. We've just actually taken a registration for Albert, created today. He doesn't have an order, but he could easily have an order for this course. The only setup I need actually within this is I need the code to match up to the Coassemble code. So if I go into edit quickly, you can see here my e-learning code is set to the same as what's going to be the Coassemble one. That will make sense in just a moment. We can see over here, we want to add Albert to this, building an online learning strategy right here. This is the course, but right now there's no way other than manually adding him to do so. So that's where Zapier is going to come in. So I'm over in my my Zapier account now. I'm going to create a new Zap. We're going to walk through this one. I'm going to show you how to do it, but I'm going to run you through a couple of other Zaps, which I've already made just as examples to show you what else can be done as well. So we're going to start off with Arlo, and we need to select an new e-learning registration. And I'm just going to hook up my account, or choose my account. You might need to hook up your account. It's the first time you're using Zapier. And we just want to pull the contact information in as well. So we have Albert's contact information, so we can create him as a user and enroll him. So I'm going to test that trigger. And that was Zapier going to Arlo requesting some information. So it's pulled the latest registration, e-learning registration, which is Albert, which is fantastic. So we can use him as our sample while we build this out. Great. So we've got the e-learning registration information from Arlo. That's now extracted and ready to use within this Zap. Every time a new e-learning registration comes in, it's going to pull all that information and use it. We need to quickly just make sure he's an approved registrant, right? So we can have a look here. We can see he's approved here. We just need to make sure that we validate that within Zapier because we don't want to add unapproved registrants to an e-learning course. You might want to do that. If you can, it's fine. You could leave this filter out. But in this instance, I want to know that they're approved registrants, typically because they've paid their order then. Great, that works on that. And then we're going to add in another step. This is another action. This time we're going to start adding the information to Coassemble. Now, Coassemble has two parts to add someone. The first thing we need to do is create them as a user. So just going to open that up, continue, and I'm going to choose my account. Again, you'll need to hook up your account. It's very easy to hook up both Arlo and Coassemble to Zapier. It's just a case of logging in. A little pop-up appears. So we have some some required fields we need to match. And this is a cool thing about Zapier. All I'm doing is just matching information. So for the username, I'm going to use the email. So I can search for his email. This is from that new registration step. I'm going to leave the password blank. They'll set that when they first log in. They need their email address. This is for the contact information instead, rather than the username. That's fine. We can add that in. Anyone who's going to be getting added, I know is a learner, so I'm going to set them as a learner. And then the rest of these, as you can see, I'm just mapping the fields. First name to first name, last name to last name, where this would normally need to be done in code. I'm doing this just by doing this. Now, this avatar field, I'm actually going to use the sign else. I'm going to type in ID number here because I'm going to take their registration ID. And you're going to see why I want their registration ID later when I show you a different Zap in just a moment, actually. But we're going to have that there. We can leave all of these bits. We don't need to worry about those. They're just some different settings. We're just going to test, make sure that Albert's now being made inside of Coassemble. So have a think. There we go. User was just sent to Coassemble. Wonderful. And then now we've created him, we need to actually enroll him on the correct course. So we are going to create an enrollment. Go next, again, just select my account. And then it gives you the choice. So you could either add someone to a group or a course. In this instance, we want a course, but you can see how easy it is to add someone to a group and you assign that group to the right course within Coassemble. So that's great for private training. We're going to choose the course. Now, this is where, sorry, it's just having to think about it. And I was having to think. So you can do one or two things here. Either I can specify exactly which course I want. And this is what we would consider a one-to-one mapping. So for one type of registration coming in, I want them all to go to one type of course. Or maybe within the filter here, I can say only allow people who have a certain course name or course tag or course code to proceed. So that's one way of doing this, but it's more economic if I can say, right, for any e-learning registration, I want you to check whether there's a course within Coassemble that they exist within or can be enrolled within as well. And we can do that because you remember where I mentioned we changed the course code here, right, to this code here. Well, if we look 5658, I think it was that, what was it? 56585 is actually the ID number of this course. So this is just the name, right? This is the actual ID that specifies it. Same in Arlo that we have lots of IDs, users, registration, event IDs, same thing for Coassemble. So by setting the course code as the Coassemble course ID, I can go into here and I can type in code, and we see here we have the e-learning code, and it's the same thing, 56585. And I can select that, and I've now specified that for this e-learning registration, enroll him on 56585, but maybe he has a different one. Maybe he's actually part of, maybe he's going to get enrolled on how to build a website. That's 56788. So for the e-learning course, how to build a website, I would have the course code of 56788, and I would specify that instead. But here, all we need to do is put in e-learning code. That's going to dynamically change based on which event they've registered themselves on. Easy as that, right? We now have a many-to-many mapping. Super simple, super cost-effective way of doing this. So quick and easy. As a user, we're going to do the same thing again, right? I'm going to go across to the custom, but this time I'm taking the information from the new user I created in Coassemble. And I actually need to use their ID here. So I put that in. And then finally, the role is a learner. You could assign him as a teacher. We don't need to do that. They're obviously going to be a learner. And I'm just going to test and review that step. Awesome, there we go. So if we jump back into Coassemble now and we go into users, we should see, oh, there he is, Albert Lampley. He's actually enrolled on 2 courses. So both how to build a website, and we've just invited him. Sorry, we've just invited him to the 26th of November, how to build a website, and he's part of building an online learning strategy as well. Easy as that, right? I can now give us a name, enroll new Arlo eLearning Coassemble course. Done. Turn that on. Just gonna have a think about it. It's thrown an error, but that would turn it on. It would just be working forevermore in the background. Any new e-learning registrations that come through that have the right code will get enrolled on the right e-learning course. It was as easy as that, right? There is documentation up for this right now. There is a Zap template which you can use. You can press one button, says try to Zap. It is built out exactly as you see like this. All you need to do is hook up your Arlo account, hook up your Coassemble account in both of these steps. Make sure you've got your right ID numbers in your e-learning course codes here. You can get those from this create enrollment step we saw just by looking at the course here, and you're good to go. That's it, easy as that. Okay, so that's an example of just an e-learning, like bought an e-learning course, enroll them on it. What about if we wanted to go for a blended learning, so a more complicated one? We've talked about that a lot today. We can take a look at that as well. So this is one I've made earlier. Instead here, we're seeing we're a new multi-session event. So in this instance, Albert's actually joined the online development bootcamp. And it's 2 sessions, quite easy. It's an introduction to online development on the 31st of March. And on the 20th of May, he's going to go to the how to build a website. These are both physical sessions, right? So they have a location. They're hosted at our fake London office. But there's also the online aspect of that, right? It's a blended learning course. We want to add him to the e-learning aspect of that. Well, this is what this Zap is doing. It is exactly the same as the one we just built for the e-learning, but instead we're taking a multi-session event registration. It could be a basic event, single session as well, but we're taking a multi-session one. We can see here, it's probably got, here we go, Albert again, multi-4 online development bootcamp. Great, that's fine. We're doing the same things we did beforehand. We're specifying that he's on the right course and that he's an approved registrant. We're creating him. This would actually be a find or create step instead of just a straight create. We are then creating the enrollment in Coassemble. We are then going further where I talked about being able to build more complicated workflows, right? We then want to add him to the MailChimp list that belongs to this blended learning course. So he's receiving customized marketing communication and maybe course communication through MailChimp because he's automatically added to that list. That's awesome. We are adding him to a spreadsheet because we need those details to send off, let's say, an accrediting body for them to validate the people or to authorize the people who are on this blended learning course. And then we're going to send an outbound email to the presenter of this course or the staff taking this course saying, hey, there's a new person on it. Albert, here is his details. He's got his access. He's all set up, right? This took me about 20 minutes to make, right? I obviously had these set up. So I had the list set up. I had my spreadsheet set up. I know the email I want to send, but the actual building of this app took me about 20 minutes. It is easy as that to do that. So that's a blended learning one with a more sophisticated workflow. That's great. Okay, but there's a whole other aspect of what happens when someone finishes that blended, that Coassemble course. Well, we want to be able to take their completion and put that back into Arlo's room recording. That's where we talked about being able to send those certificates automatically based on criteria, and then also just being able to report on these sorts of things as well, or maybe as certifications associated to it. So Coassemble has the course completed trigger. We can see here, we just have an example. In this instance, it's myself, that I have passed a course, right? So I think it should say I did building an online learning strategy. I passed, I got 100% on it. Thank you. And there's some other useful information to do with how long it took me, the actual report URL, so I can input that into Arlo, so I can access the report from my progress and my my results within Coassemble. But all the information to do with the completion is held in there. I have a utility here. This is actually just taking care of converting some text for me. So Coassemble has as a true false status for whether they passed, but in Arlo, we use pass fail. So this is a utility function that Zapier builds, which is just saying, look up this value. So look up the past field, check what the value is in it. And if it's true, change that to pass. If it's false, change that to fail. And if you don't know what it is, leave it as unknown, which is an option in Arlo as well. So that's just doing a little bit of conversion for me. And then I'm going in here. And you remember where I talked about, we put the registration ID in the avatar field. Well, that's for this section, because here I can then call, I'm not actually doing it here because this was beforehand, but I can call the avatar field here, right? So I would type this in, right, use avatar, and it would have the ID number that which we just saw in there populated in this. Sorry, I should have that set up for you. But then that's specifying the registration ID, which is telling me who I want to update. I can then update the attendance just straight away, because I know this is a completed course. I know I can mark them as attended. We see here, this is where I've got that pass. So I'm taking the converted true and inputting a pass, and then I'm using the grade as the score percentage. So it could be 75%, in this instance, it's 100%. And that if you have custom fields as well, so maybe if this was the, a field for the report URL, I could take that and drop it in there. And then I can run through this. I'll test it. Obviously, it would send the information out to that registration for me. The ID field's missing in this instance, but I could turn that zap on, and then for everyone who completes a course in Coassemble, I can pass that information back into Arlo. So then within here, at the end of that course, Albert is going to have the grade as the percentage. He's going to have maybe a pass. Maybe he's got 85%, right? And then maybe he also, within one of these fields, there's the link to his results report. So you can see how easy it is for me to build out these zaps for really powerful functionality without touching code, without really needing to do much work beyond, especially if you're using our templates through the docs. All you're doing is connecting up the accounts, and you have a pretty fully fledged integration between Coassemble and Arlo. And that's putting you in such a strong position. Okay, so now you have the tools available to you to connect Arlo to pretty much any LMS out there that has a Zapier integration. As long as it has the right triggers and actions available to it, you can hook Arlo up to it. We were looking at Coassemble, and as we mentioned earlier, we think it's a fantastic fit to work alongside Arlo to help you deliver e-learning and blended learning and just manage your training business as a whole. So we invited Coassemble to show us their product so you can see the inside of an LMS for yourself and gain a little bit of experience around that. I'm going to hand it over to Coassemble's Nick Ruckel now. He's going to take you through a demo. Go for it, Nick.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Nick. I really appreciate it. And hello, everyone. As he just mentioned, I'm the other Nick Ruckel, here today representing Coassemble and the LMS side of things. And I just want to say right off the bat that I'm so excited to be here, having gotten to know some of the Arlo team members and the Arlo product. Just a bit of a backstory. When we first made this connection and discussed doing this webinar, I think the number one thing that attracted us to each other was the similarities we saw. So the way we interact with our customers, the way we approach the market, the way that we actually build and develop our product to be very intuitive, very easy to use, very streamlined, and very future focused. So once again, just to provide that context, we're very excited to be here collaborating with Arlo. Before I go any further, I do believe that my video feed is currently hidden. But good news is that that'll be changing shortly as we transition from the slides into a short demo of our platform Coassemble. So excited to get that in front of you as well, see some of this in action, obviously on the back of what Nick was able to show us there from Arlo. So very exciting. Also to begin and just segue, I want to acknowledge that awesome first half of the presentation given by Nick. I know personally that it's great to see somebody simplifying a tool like Zapier for setting up integrations, because it's something that truly, and a lot of times, is a lot simpler to set up than we think, or than we think we understand. It's something that for people that are diving into this world for the first time, whether it be LMS, TMS, hear the word integrations and think that's above their head. I think that requires an IT team or a developer, etc. And so, as you've just seen, it's becoming so straightforward with platforms like Zapier and the wonderful integrations apps that Coassemble and Arlo have through their platform to create these communications between the SaaS platforms that our businesses are using every single day, nonstop. Whether that be for a pretty traditional internal use case like employee onboarding, or whether that be for kind of a newer approach of creating an online e-learning course business as a consultant, providing content to organizations or directly to the end user in some cases. So when you're able to set up these integrations and have those triggers and actions between a platform like Coassemble and a platform like Arlo, it really gives you power to automate a lot of things, create a bit of an operation in the background, if you will, where it doesn't actually require manpower to get everything done. So very exciting, just to kind of hit on that as well. Moving ahead, kind of transitioning solely over to Coassemble now in the LMS world. Obviously, as you can see here on my home page, we have our great example of a history of the Air Jordan course. So pretty exciting stuff. To kind of move into that though, the similarity, as I mentioned with Arlo, just like they are with Coassemble, we look at ourselves as an all-in-one LMS. So what does that mean? It means that we're a course authoring tool for creating on-demand asynchronous material that you can distribute out to your employees or to your customers or to the general public in certain instances, but then also oversee that process, right? Create structure with enrollments and who's getting content and seeing what, getting reporting and analytics, seeing who's engaging with the content, who's performing well, etc. So really having that tool that's an all-in-one central hub to manage that LMS space. So the content that you're creating and where it's going and the people that are interacting with it. A couple interesting bullet points I have here up on the screen. Obviously, the ease of use, right? So not only for the learner, we'll talk about that here in a minute, of just how learner focused this is and how the streamlined aspect of Coassemble is set up for engagement of the learner and also for ease of use of the learner as far as retrieving that content and finding that content and getting into that content. So exciting stuff there. And then moving ahead, kind of on the authoring side, on the admin side, creating courses with our 40 in-house templates that are set up to be drag and drop user interface. So really kind of just taking that to the next level of truly not needing a background in graphic design, I should say, to develop amazing online content. We've really done that for you. So when we get to the demo, I'm very excited to show you that. LMS to create enrollment pathways you see there. That's obviously kind of on the operation side, as I mentioned, of actually overseeing that online e-learning instance, if you will, and creating that training website that's white labeled to feel like your business or feel like your customer's business, just depending on the use case again. And then bottom there, right? Like being able to connect this to any of the other apps and platforms that you use every day, as Nick Buttery just outlined. So I won't go back into that. But with Zapier, you really unlock everything that you need to in this platform, which is wonderful. Moving ahead as well, I think I just said it, but the learner first training model. So focusing on how streamlined this is for the end user, right? Like, what's the purpose of getting an LMS in the first place? It's great when it works easily for the admin. It's great to be able to create that engaging content. But the number one thing that we care about and that statistics show us we should care about is how it's working for the end user, for that learner, right? So whether it be your employee that you're looking to engage and give new product info to, or whether it be your customer that you're onboarding to the product they just purchased from you. And once again, those are just two examples, but making this very learner focused in that you can deliver them a course anywhere you want. They can get the course instantaneously, whether it's on their phone, on their laptop, on their tablet. And when they get into it, it feels more like clicking on a Netflix movie than it does opening up a traditional LMS that's a bit dodgier, not learner focused. So we've really modernized this and made it feel very friendly and navigable. Kind of just piggybacking off of what I just said there, adding value, right? So two bullets on the screen, one directly related to Coassemble there with Unlock Learning, and I'll touch on that in a minute. but with just versatility in general. So it's easy to kind of put blinders on and think of that immediate use case that you have for a TMS or for an LMS. And I think the nice thing, we saw it once again in the first half of the presentation with Zapier and integrations of how you can kind of release this and do whatever you would want with it. But multiple use cases, right? So you need that online training platform for internal employee training. You may need it for online social media engagement for leads, right? Like a product teaser course, if you will. Once again, that customer use case where you're providing product training to your customer. Obviously a lot of Arlo users that are potentially creating an online course consultancy and creating content to deliver to organizations or directly to end users is becoming a very, very common use case on Coassemble. And once again, we get a lot of folks that come through that aren't thinking that initially or haven't really gotten to that point in the evaluation. And when they realize that light bulb kind of goes off, there's a lot more ways to roll these platforms out than you initially think. With Unlock Learning, it's definitely in line with what I just said there. But in Coassemble, it was actually a feature update we did to unlock learning, right? So what does that mean? Kind of removing this content from the traditional dashboard experience. That's very clunky. It's very old. It feels outdated. More to, like I said earlier, more comparing it to selecting a movie off of Amazon Prime, right? If you're making a comparison like that. So being able to put these courses where you want them. So if you are going to embed that onto your website and create some type of excitement around a new product release, et cetera, whether you wanted to put it on your LinkedIn, whether you wanted to put a course into a Slack channel internally, et cetera. So not having it locked down to a closed off LMS dashboard, but being able to provide them a streamlined dashboard experience, but also pieces of content and subsets of content in different ways back down to that versatility. Awesome. So enough talk there. I want to get into the demo, show you a bit of Coassemble and our product. It's definitely the most exciting part. Just want to highlight a few bullet points of focus to take a look at here. So first, the learner view of a course. I already hit on it heavily, just the focus we take with the experience for the end user and the learner. So I'm really excited to show you that sample course and kind of what's possible here, what you can create. And then just the back end there with course creation. So those drag and drop templates, just seeing how intuitive and easy this is to get going. Another holdup that we see a lot of times with LMSs and systems like TMS where people are implementing, especially from the first time, or they're transitioning from a legacy system that's been in place forever, is that they think that onboarding process and that initial rollout is going to take so much heavy lifting that it's almost not worth it to put it in place. And this comes back to the ease of use for Coassemble and a platform like Arlo, right? In that we've made it so easy to create an amazing course with our drag and drop templates that you can really have this up and running almost immediately by transitioning old materials into our platform. And then just some kind of operational stuff there, admin and analytics, just so you can get a feel kind of for how our platform is designed and what it looks like, and just give a little bit of extra cherry on top there. Great. So I mentioned my video feed was cut earlier. I believe it will go live now when I switch over to the platform. Hello, everybody. So another bit of a surprise here. Can't really tell, right? Are we in Coassemble or are we in Arlo right now? And what I did before this webinar was I actually created an instance of Coassemble for Arlo. So you see a bit of branding here. I have Arlo's training hub, their logo. I've added their colors in here. So this comes back to that all-in-one LMS, right? Where you can create this online instance. You can create this training website that looks and feels like your business. Whether you want to send your learners here to get the courses or use this more as a management tool and export the courses out. There's 50 ways to do things in Coassemble with almost every function, and that's why I love it, and that's why it's so versatile and kind of streamlined moving into the future. So I'd mentioned that learner view of the course, and we'll get there. Obviously, you got to create the course first. So I want to start with the course creation and kind of what that admin experience would look like. Before I click on anything here, I do always like to point out just the simplicity that we see, right? So what I mentioned earlier about this just being extremely easy to pick up at all facets. From bottom up, right? So from customizing this instance with the white labeling, setting up automated reminders, setting up user groups and structure, if you were going to do that departmentally, or if an external use case situation, possibly multi-organizationally, et cetera. So you're able to do that here in Coassemble. The exciting part, and I think where you can really get a platform like Coassemble to work extremely well with Arlo, is definitely utilizing it as a content creation tool. So I want to get into that, the course creation, so we can see that final product as well. So essentially, each of these courses is a tile. So for the purpose of our webinar today, I'm going to jump over here and kind of use this soft skills course as an example. So you can imagine that I just clicked on this tile. My configuration and where it lands me is very, once again, straightforward, modern. It's easy to understand. You got these tabs in Coassemble that move you through the configuration. So here on that first page, designing that tile, a bit of an overview, some basic stuff. What I want to show you today are the modules in Coassemble. So when you're creating a course in Coassemble, you essentially develop it with modules. And a course can be any number and combination of module types. So you can really start to get an idea of what's possible here. You could have a very simplified course, micro-learning, if you will. You could also have a very long-form, exhaustive course. And to show you these module types, there's 7 of them. So we have sort of 2 classifications, interactive versus standard. What I want to point out here is that the interactive modules are really that robust authoring tool that compete with tools like Adobe, the Articulates of the world, Storylines of the world, that are very robust, but require background in design, versus this lesson module, this quiz module, and this assignment module gives you that power in a much more streamlined way, and we'll see that here shortly. Versus these down here are more for uploading purposes. Happy to answer questions on that if you're interested. PDF, video, etc. Moving ahead, I want to show you the lesson module. So I talked about those drag and drop templates, for more than 40 of them, and that's where we find them here in the lesson module. So if I jump over to this tab, just as if I hit the edit, we would land on this screen, where now on the right-hand side, you see all of these templates that we have here. So some basic ones, text with image, a little video template. When I click presentation templates, we get a bit more. And these are some of the more interactive, engageable templates that you can input your training info in. So the wheel template, the springy list template, the hotspot template, moving ahead, interactive and challenge style templates. Say you want to show the learner a 30-second video and then give them a knowledge check question, or potentially you want to put them in a branching scenario and give them options to move through the situation. And the beautiful thing about these is that all you need to do is drag and drop it right in there, drop it in, give it a title, input your information, and you're good to go. So it's that simple. And the way that you can really see that come through is on the learner side. So if I jump over here to this tab, essentially, we've created a course that highlights all of these templates and what they look like from a learner perspective. So if I jump on this tab, I'm now a learner in Coassemble. So I have a bit of a navigation bar. This is a course that we set up with that lesson module and all of those templates that I just briefly showed you. So if I hit next on this course, I'm, as I said, taking this course as a learner here. I'm getting my first basic template. So this is telling us the text and image right template, very basic. We have another one here, text and image bottom right. So there's just a few different ways to present these things, which is awesome. What I want to show you a little bit more exciting, as you can see, this is an exhaustive list of our templates built out into an actual Coassemble course. But these are the fun ones. So some of these kind of presentation templates and where it looks as if a graphic designer came in here and spent hours designing. This hotspot template is a great example. You upload an image, different hotspots, if you will, to click on. You get new information as a learner. So this is a really fun one. Obviously, you can provide that description here. Another fun one is the wheel template. And I won't show you all of these, but I do like to show a couple because they do come across so professional and so built out for the learner. But they're, like I said, already done for you. You're just adding the text essentially and images. So here in the wheel template, right, every time I click a slice of the pie, I'm getting new information, very engageable, very interactive. The last one I want to show you real quick is this branching scenario. This one's very exciting. And as you can see, there's too many to show you today. But the branching scenario, this is a great one. So social media at work, just a bit of an example here. We get a question, a few different options. So, oops, this is a kind of branching scenario checkpoint style question, right? So then I click the right response, it gives me my proper answer. So that's a bit of the learner view. And jumping back as well to this screen, as you can kind of tell, I was creating what we call topics in Coassemble. So you're able to have levels to your content, if you will. So you can have a course, a module, and then within that lesson module, topics. So you could have a lesson module, as we see here in our sample course, that encompasses the entirety of the course. Wonderful. So jumping back to the admin side of Coassemble quickly, and I won't cover everything today. Be happy to have each and every one of you in for a demo of Coassemble if that's something that you'd be interested in. I know Nick Buttery will be following up with my contact information if any of you would like to get in touch. But coming back to that initial page that we saw here in Coassemble, the home page for the administrator, I wanted to show you just around some of this navigation. So as you can see, this is built extremely simply. I had said in the beginning of my presentation that we are an authoring tool and then an LMS in one to manage your users, create enrollment, set up structure, and also oversee the process with getting great dashboard analytics, reports, etc. And that's how we build out Coassemble. So here on the courses page, as you can see, all of these tiles are a course. We were just looking at that soft skills course. That's this highlighted button here. But then you have your users tab. So this is where you can come in, set up groups, like I just said, send out enrollments, create self-enrollment, do auto enrollment, etc., and reports. So this is a fun one. I'm just going to give you a bit of a teaser on this one. Won't click into these today, but essentially these are high-level reports that are live updated for you, and every time you click on one, you can dig deeper and deeper. So the learner report, for example, would give you a list of all your customers if that was your use case, or all of your employees if that was your use case. And you could click on a particular user and get very in-depth data on how they're interacting, if they're picking up the content, if they're actually spending the proper amount of time, etc. So once again, I'm Nick from Coassemble. It's been such a pleasure presenting today and talking through a bit of our world of LMSs and Arlo's world of TMSs, and obviously showing you our platform Coassemble. Nick will wrap up the webinar here, and he will be providing, as I said, my contact information. I would love to speak with anyone that's interested in LMS or in Coassemble or anything surrounding that. And I also believe that Nick will be mentioning a bit of a promotion that Coassemble is offering as we round out the year here to get started for a bit of a discount. So exciting. If any of you are interested or actively searching for an asynchronous content creation tool or something along these lines, we would love to be connected. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Nick. It's been wonderful joining you today, and I hope to speak with each and every one of you. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Nick. Great to see how Coassemble works and the inside of it. That was a really interesting demo. So in terms of getting started with Coassemble, we have a fantastic offer put together. Coassemble is offering the first 2 months for $29. That's normally $299 a month. as well as free implementation. In conjunction to this, Arlo will create your zaps for free from our existing zap templates. That's normally $200 of zaps. So you can have both systems working together smoothly for e-learning, blended learning, and passing that information back into Arlo. So you've got that full connection there. I want to say thanks to you all for attending this webinar today. It's been a pleasure hosting. It's been really interesting taking this. If you're interested in finding out more about that Zapier or the Coassemble starter offer, you can get in touch with your CSN. That's Ezra, Alex, or Tom. And you can get in touch directly with Coassemble with the email up on the screen. Keep an eye on your inbox for a link to the recording of this webinar. It's also going to include the details of that offer, including the free Zap building part by Arlo. And we'll be in touch with you soon, or just get in touch with us. If you have any support queries around Zapier itself, just reach out to us at support@arlo.co. Always happy to have a chat. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you next time. Take care.